In this session, we're going to look at how to represent inequalities on a number line and using interval notation. Things we need to consider with inequalities are the symbols that we use to represent the inequalities. We have less than and greater than. Less than, numerically speaking, as in 2 is less than 5, but we're going to see this in the context of things like x is less than 3. As for greater than, we know that 8 is greater than 4, and we'll see this in a context like x is greater than negative 2. We also have less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. Less than and greater than are referred to as strict inequalities because when we represent them using variables, we do not include the number that we're indicating. Less than or equal to and greater than or equal to are called non-strict inequalities. And the symbols that we use to represent less than and greater than are going to be parentheses, and the symbol that we're going to use to represent less than or equal to and greater than or equal to are going to be square brackets. And one way to remember which ones use the square brackets is to think of the straight lines as being used for the ones with a straight line underneath. This discussion wouldn't be complete if we didn't use the inequality symbol not equal to. And when we express these inequalities, we're going to express them on a number line and using interval notation. When we consider a number line, it has an orientation. Numbers to the right of 0 are positive, and numbers to the left of 0 are negative. This number line extends infinitely far in both directions, and to the right we have positive infinity, and to the left we have negative infinity. And the interval notation to represent the entire number line starts with negative infinity on the left. We use a comma to separate our values, and positive infinity on the right. And infinity will always get a parenthesis and never a square bracket, because the parenthesis indicates that we aren't including the endpoint. And since infinity is not a number, it's a notion, we can never include it. Interval notation is going to have a smaller number on the left and a larger number on the right, whether we're using parentheses or square brackets. Keeping this in mind, we can express something like x is less than 3 on a number line by indicating where the 0 is, and 3 is to the right of 0. Since the variable in consideration is x, I'm going to label the number line x. And because this is x is less than 3, you might see this written using an open circle and then shaded to the left. But we're not going to use that. We're going to use a parenthesis and shade to the left. The interval notation for this is going to be negative infinity, comma, 3, with a parenthesis at negative infinity and a parenthesis with the 3. Next, we'll consider x is less than or equal to negative 5. I'll draw the number line again. The variable is x. I'll label as 0 and negative 5, mostly for orientation, and we're looking at the non-strict inequality x is less than or equal to negative 5. Using the circles, this would be a closed circle and then shaded to the left. But again, that's not what we'll be doing. We're going to use a square bracket at negative 5 and shade to the left to indicate values that are smaller than negative 5. Our interval still starts at negative infinity, and we use a parenthesis for that, and then ends at negative 5, and we use a square bracket because once again we use the one with the straight lines for the one that has the line underneath. Next we'll look at x is greater than negative 2. On a number line labeled with x, I'll put a 0 and negative 2 for orientation, a a parenthesis opening to the right at -2, and shade to the right. In interval notation, since our interval starts at -2, and this is a strict inequality, we have a parenthesis with -2, and then infinity with a parenthesis as well. For something like x is greater than or equal to 4, again we have our number line, 0 for orientation, and a 4 to the right. X is greater than or equal to 4, so we'll use a square bracket opening to the right and shade to the right. And for the interval notation, we use a square bracket 4, comma, infinity, again using a parenthesis for infinity. Now we'll see three kinds of compound inequalities. The first one is x does not equal 2. What we indicate here is all of the numbers except for 2. And so on a number line, I would have parentheses at 2, one opening to the left and one opening to the right. And the shading indicates all of the numbers except for 2. This is referred to as a punctured number line. As far as interval notation, these two intervals are from -infinity to 2, with a parenthesis at 2, and then 2 to infinity. And the infinities get parentheses. Because we have two distinct intervals, we connect them with a U symbol that represents a union. And this is a compound inequality because it refers to two distinct intervals. Another kind of compound inequality uses two inequality symbols, as in the case of -3 is less than x, which is less than or equal to 8. This kind I would prefer to read as x is between -3 and 8. We'll mark -3 and 8 on the number line. I'll put a 0 for completeness, even though it's not necessary for orientation in this case. And because we have the strict inequality of -3 is less than x, I'm going to use a parenthesis at -3 opening to the right. And we have the non-strict inequality, x is less than or equal to 8. So I'll use a square bracket at the 8 and shade in between the two because, as we said, x is between -3 and 8. The interval notation for this looks a lot like what we put on the number line. A parenthesis for -3 and then a comma and 8 with a square bracket. Finally, we have the compound inequality x is less than or equal to 5 or x is greater than 12. On a number line, this can be expressed by marking our 5 and our 12. And since we have the non-strict inequality x is less than or equal to 5, we're going to use a square bracket that opens to the left at 5. And we have the strict inequality x is greater than 12. So we're going to use a parenthesis that opens to the right at 12. And shade accordingly. And the interval notation for this starts with -infinity, goes up to 5 with a square bracket at 5, the union symbol, 12, comma, infinity with a parenthesis.